This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Like much of the world, theater was hit hard by the pandemic, but things pretty much returned to normal in St. Louis's theater scene in 2022, and it's safe to say that last year, stage productions were completely back in full swing. While challenges other than pandemic restrictions remain, there's a great deal to celebrate about live theatrical stage performance. Here to talk with us about both, we have two members of the St. Louis Theater Circle, which, every year, honors the best in local professional theater. First, Michelle Kenyon, theater critic with Snoop's Theater Thoughts blog and KDHX Radio. And James Lindhorst, theater critic with BroadwayWorld.com.
Good afternoon, and thanks, Elaine.
Okay, thanks to you both for being here. Now, before we get to some of the nominations and stellar productions, let's talk about the big theater story in 2023, and that was the repertory theater of St. Louis's financial woes. Last fall, the Rep announced a fundraising goal of $2.5 million. They scaled back or canceled some productions. What is going on at the Rep, James?
So, the Rep has raised about $2.1 million of their shortfall, about 80% of what they need, which is terrific. Their productions this year were absolutely fantastic. I know that Michelle wants to speak to some of those. And I think Danny has a really good handle on what's going on there. Their next production is going to be Moby Dick. I had the opportunity to interview David Catlin, who is the director of Moby Dick, and it appears that this is an incredible production that really won't want to be missed. I think the biggest challenge that the Rep has is how they're going to replace their subscribers, right? And what they're going to do with their upcoming seasons to replace their subscribers, because even if they can fundraise and find the money they need from their shortfall, without the return of the subscribers that they've lost, they'll struggle, right? And I think that's probably the most important thing for the Rep right now.
Right.
Michelle?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the subscriber model has been a little bit of an issue with a lot of theater companies throughout the country. There have been a lot that have struggled and some that have closed, and a lot of people are revisiting the model of relying so heavily on the subscription model. So they might want to possibly revisit that and figure out how to sell more tickets individually, or yeah.
So actor and Afton native John Goodman came in for a fundraiser in December for the Rep, and we actually got to interview him for the show, and he was a delight. How are fundraising efforts going? Michelle, do you have any insights into that?
Just what they've announced, which is that they've made 80%, and possibly more since they announced 80%. I don't know, and they're. Yeah, I'm hopeful because their productions have been great this year, and what they've got planned coming up sounds good too. So, I mean, hopefully they will be able to get a new artistic director in as well, because Hannah Sharif is left to join Arena Stage in D.C., and so hopefully they will be able to find someone there that will help them develop more of develop a vision for going forward and bring back some of that audience.
Yeah.
And they were among the most nominated companies this year with 19 nominations.
Right,
so
right.
The Rep had some very terrific productions this year.
Well, kind of stepping back from the Rep, I mean, generally speaking, what is the quote-unquote health status of local professional theater companies? How are they faring, Jim?
I think they're doing very well. You see an awful lot of smaller companies taking on some pretty aggressive material. For example, Tesseract is going to do The Inheritance Part 1 and 2 this year, which is a major undertaking for a small theater company. But this year we had 55 different plays nominated and 24 companies nominated to be honored with the St. Louis Theater Awards. So we are seeing an immense amount of productions, not only from the larger companies, but from smaller companies who are doing really quality work.
And that's a great segue into the nominations. Very brief by the numbers. There are a total of 33 categories that cover comedies, dramas, musicals, and operas, and more than 100 productions that were considered for St. Louis Theater Circle's awards nominations this year. We'll have a full list of nominees posted on our website, stlpr.org, at exactly 1 o'clock. So, Jim, you had alluded to this. The Rep, despite its challenges, received 19 nominations.
Correct.
And Stages St. Louis and the New Jewish Theater also received at least 19 nominations, with the Muni leading the way with 26. Tell us what it is that stood out from the Rep, Michelle.
From the Rep?
Yeah.
I liked three productions that stood out really strongly for me and spread out throughout the year. Confederates early in the year, which was a very well-done drama that also had some excellent technical aspects to it. The Murder on the Orient Express, which was an interesting take on an Agatha Christie tale that was turned into like a cinematic thing on stage and a spectacular set. And the Lehman trilogy later in the season, at the beginning of the latest season, but later in the year, that had featured some incredible performances and an excellent set and technical values too. The Rep always generally brings out all the stops with the technical aspects. Their sets can be spectacular, and they've been great this year.
Mm-hmm. James, did anything different stand out to you?
Oh, so Stages always does a terrific season, but this year between their two shows, Clue and $1 Million Quartet, were absolutely spectacular, and Aida actually got some love with the nominations as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things I think is really, really impressive is Rebecca Scallett's work over at the New Jewish Theater. This is a small theater company, right? A much smaller black box type theater, where she achieved 24 nominations this year. And one of my favorite productions of the year was their production of Into the Woods, a completely immersive, visceral production where the actors were looking you right in the eye in a small in-the-round theater space and telling the story of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales, right? At least Sondheim's take on the Brothers Grimm fairy tale. And it was very reminiscent of the immersive in-the-round revival of of Once on This Island that they did at the Circle and the Square on Broadway. Really a spectacular take on that show. But for me, the production of the year was Clue. And both Into the Woods and Clue are tied with 11 nominations each.
So what made Clue so killer?
And I actually called it Killer Fun in my review, so it's funny that you ask it that way. So Clue was well acted. It was an incredible story. Their direction was unbelievable. The physical comedy was absolutely hilarious. And the set design was a character unto itself. There were appearing and disappearing rooms that occurred with this set design. So it was really top to bottom. It was well done. And it was actually nominated in every single category that it was eligible for, with 4 acting nominations as well.
Yeah.
So Mark Price was nominated for his work as Wadsworth, which is the lead of the show. Zoe Vonderhaar as Mrs. Peacock. Diana DeGarmo as Miss Scarlet, and Charlie Franklin as Mr. Green were all honored with nominations.
Let's up the drama a little bit by sharing some of the nominations that will be posted today at 1 p.m. Michelle, if you could read for us the Outstanding Production of a Drama nominees, that would be great.
Okay, we have Death of a Salesman from the Black Rep, It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio play from the Repertory Theater of St. Louis, The Immigrant from the New Jewish Theater, the Lehman Trilogy from the Repertory Theater of St. Louis, and Uncle Vanya from St. Louis Actors Studio.
And that was for Outstanding Production of a Drama.
Production of a Drama, yes.
And Jim, please do the honors for Outstanding Production of a Comedy.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Repertory Theater's St. Louis take on Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. Albion Theater's The Birthday Party, that's a Harold Pinter play. The New Jewish Theater's production of Broadway Bound is nominated. Of course, Clue from Stages St. Louis. And Stray Dog Theater, production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf rounds out the comedy nominees.
And given that we talked about musicals just yesterday on the show, I will do the honors for outstanding production of a musical. We have Ida from Stages St. Louis, Caroline or Change with Fly North Theatricals, Into the Woods from the New Jewish Theater, $1 Million Quartet from Stages St. Louis, and West Side Story, the Muni. So congratulations to all of those who are just hearing that they've been nominated for this honor. There are two theaters that we have not yet talked much about, and those are Albion Theater and Fly North Theatricals. Now, there's a success story with Greenfinch Theater and Dive in South City on Jefferson, and it's the home of Fly North Theatricals. It's the location of the former Way Out Club. What makes Greenfinch a win for local professional theater, Michelle?
We were just there last night. Jim and I both were there for a local theater production. It's the home of Fly North Theatricals, and it's run by Colin Healy and Bradley Rolfe from Fly North Theatricals, but they also host other theater companies, and it's an excellent venue for smaller theater companies to get seen in St. Louis. It's also a really excellent atmosphere. It's definitely that dive bar kind of atmosphere with the dark wood and the comfy chairs, and all the chairs don't match in the theater space and everything, and it's a unique experience, and it's worked. I've seen 2 shows there so far, and both from different theater companies, and it works very well as a space for smaller theater companies and different types of productions, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. And you had mentioned, James, Albion Theater.
Yes.
What is notable about Albion Theater?
So Albion Theater is run by the artistic director, Robert Ashton, and Albion is a group that does only plays by English and Irish playwrights. And they're bringing plays, it's actually at the Kranzberg Black Box where they perform, and they're bringing plays to the St. Louis audience that we don't often see. Last year they did 3 productions. Each production was stellar in its production value, in the way it was acted, in its casting and direction. So Suki Peters was actually nominated as a director for the production of The Birthday Party, and The Birthday Party picked up about 7 nominations. We also have a nomination for Mind Game and Acting, which was a show they did in October, which was kind of a thriller that's written by Anthony Horowitz. And then their middle production was Alan Ayckbourn's Absent Friends. And again, these are all terrific productions that are by Irish and English playwrights. And I have yet to see anything at Albion that's disappointed me, and that was their last full season this past year.
Okay. That's a pretty high bar.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Yes, really well done.
So anytime there are nominations, people will have different feelings about them because they are picks by a group. I'd like to know about your personal favorites in the last year. Michelle, what was your favorite production in 2023?
That's a hard choice because there were so many good ones, and I could pick like a list. But one I would like to highlight is a new play, actually, that got nominated for new play this year called See You in a Minute from a new theater company called Contraband Theater Company. It's a very timely play that also has a little bit of a sci-fi edge to it, that addressing the pandemic and displaced grief and some really interesting characters and production. And we have 2 acting nominations from that production here with Ricky Franklin and Kelly Howe.
Yeah. James, for your part, what was your favorite?
So we've talked about my love for Clue, right?
Yes.
And how spectacular I thought Clue was. I also thought that the Muni's productions of Beautiful, the Carole King story, was really spectacular. And this is really interesting. So at the Sheldon tonight, Sarah Shepard is doing her one-woman cabaret show for the Cabaret Project of St. Louis. And she today is picking up a nomination for Outstanding Performer in a Musical for Beautiful. She played Carole King at the Muni's production of Beautiful. I also thought what John Tartaglia, the director for Beauty and the Beast, did was absolutely epic this year at the Muni. I've never seen such a grand production of Beauty and the Beast. It was over the top, and I think epic doesn't even define what a spectacular production that was.
Mm-hmm. Last question for each of you very quickly. What's a production that is happening in 2024 that you're particularly excited to see, James?
So I've already referenced Moby Dick. I had a chance to talk to David Catlin that the rep is doing, or I believe it opens February 9th. It sounds like it's spectacular, very physical, very Cirque du Soleil-esque, and it sounds like Catlin has taken this story and really managed to make it something special.
Mm-hmm. And Michelle?
I would agree with Moby Dick, but also the Muni season looks really interesting this year, especially Waitress. It's a debut for the Muni. I saw it at the Fox when it was on tour here. It's a excellent. I mean, it looks like something really good that the Muni could be doing.
Today's episode was produced by our executive producer, Alex Hoyer.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.